7 o'clock. Rob Ebel, are we going? We are live. Tom Weidman, would you like to pop in? There we go. Hi, Tom. All right. You're muted right now, Tom, so you know, too. So we'll call the meeting to order. Very good. We are here for the Sycamore Township Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. It is 7 p.m. and we have called the meeting to order. I understand that Mr. Kellums has an invocation for us. I hope that's not news to him. And I'll ask everyone who can to stand and we'll proceed with that, and then we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for what you've done in our lives. We give you thanks for this day and for your blessings upon our township. We pray for your wisdom, Lord, and ask for your guidance as we make decisions which affect the people that we serve. And we pray that all of our decisions will be pleasing to you, Lord. We ask that your Holy Spirit gives us the gifts of listening, patience, vision, and honesty. Our desire is for your will to be done, Father. Your good, pleasing, and perfect will. And we pray that we are able to truly discern what your will is, Lord. And we pray that you place a blanket of protection over the elected officials, employees, and the citizens of our township, and that give relief to those who are suffering in this ever-changing world. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen.
Amen. And if we could move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, if Mr. Ebel can put the flag up on the feed. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Mr. Porter, would you call the roll to confirm we're all here?
Mr. LaBarbera?
Present.
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Weidman?
Present.
All right, a few preliminary orders of business here before we move into the meat of things. First of all, as we've discussed in all our prior meetings for the last year, the state of Ohio has authorized local governments to meet through remote means during this pandemic, which we're doing tonight through video conference. Hopefully someday soon we'll be back together live. But for now, votes of the Board of Trustees have the same effect as if approval had occurred during an open meeting or hearing of the public body where we were physically present with each other. State law permits resolutions and township documents to be signed with an electronic signature. Do each of you who will be signing documents which we approve tonight give approval for your electronic signature to be placed on it? And I do.
I do.
I give approval. I do.
All right, very good. Sorry for the family traffic behind me here on video. So let's move on to the approval of minutes, and then we'll come to another matter here. First of all, we have the March 16th, 2021 public hearing minutes to be approved, which is actually a verbatim transcript of what occurred during that public hearing, which will serve as the minutes since we have all of it there. So, Schuyler, if you'd like to move back to the March 16th transcript that's there. So that we can get that on the screen. Can't always trust the bookmarks, I suppose. I think it's, there you go. All right, well, we display that on the screen quickly. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion as to this transcript? I assume not. Mr. Porter, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaBarbera?
Aye.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weidman?
Aye.
All right. Next, we have the April 6th, 2021 trustee meeting minutes. If we can get that on screen there.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
There is a second.
All right. Any discussion as to these? Mr. Porter, will you call the roll as to these, please?
Mr. LaBarbera?
Aye.
Mr. James?
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
And then finally, in the minutes bundle, we have the April 13th, 2021 special trustee meeting minutes. If we could put that on the screen. Is there a motion as to?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
There is a second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Porter, will you call the
No
roll?
discussion.
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
All right. I'll note, by the way, Mr. Desai has not joined us yet for the meeting. I'm not sure what's delaying him, but I know he'll be planning to be here also. As we move on into the meeting, typically right now we would do public comments. I think we confirmed before we began the meeting that no one is actually appearing for that this evening. Has that changed? Okay. I have something I'd like to say as we start out the meeting here. And I want to first note that at all times, I want our meetings to be non-political. There are things that have gotten the township in the news this week that I thought we should address for the public. The point of my doing so is not to be political or to point fingers anywhere, but I did feel this was worth saying. Let me put this on the screen so it'll be a little easier to read and I won't be looking down here. In the 15 plus months that I've been a trustee, we've definitely lived in some interesting times. I'm happy to serve the public. I know my fellow trustees are too, and there's certainly never a dull moment in this position that each of us holds. Same as to Mr. Porter. You've probably seen troubling news reports this week about a real estate developer's accusations against a long-serving township official and the various lawsuits which are now pending between the developer and the official. I'll refer you to the news accounts for the names and the details of the various claims. I don't know whether the developer's claims are true, and I really hope they aren't. And if they aren't, I hope the official at the center of them is cleared in the end. I don't wish unjustified accusations of misconduct on anyone, friend or foe, and I'm sure my colleagues share in that thought. But if these things did happen as claimed in years past, they were a severe breach of the public's trust. And to the extent township records do exist regarding the land deals discussed in the developer's lawsuit from back then, they aren't especially helpful in sorting through the details of what happened then. I do want the public to know the township administration and the trustees are taking this very seriously. The scandalous tale isn't a surprise. I first heard it in early 2020 when the developer met me for coffee and told me much of what is now in his lawsuit. I was concerned then and I was a bit angry about what I heard, and I reported it to law enforcement pretty quickly. I had a legal and ethical duty as a township trustee to do that. And I would expect any public official to do the same under similar circumstances if confronted with them. And those few of us who knew about these volatile accusations, sorry about the dogs in the background here, we didn't try to play politics with them. We stayed watchful but silent and waited for state investigators to investigate. Due to COVID, that investigation took most of 2020 to slowly play out. In that time, the developer requested immunity and then exercised his right against self-incrimination when he didn't get it. The official was questioned and he strongly denied the charges and offered to take a polygraph exam and provided numerous documents. And the investigation was eventually closed a few months ago. The reason they gave was due to lack of witness cooperation and difficulty receiving bank records due to the length of time since the alleged act took place. The indefinite investigation outcome left me wondering whether the developer's story was really true or whether the official was actually the victim of a smear. Or perhaps the truth is in the middle somewhere. Right now, only those two opposing parties really know the truth. The rest of us don't know and should be careful with any assumptions that we make. I do know that since the investigation concluded, lawyers have been busy. Attorneys for the accused township official have sent me and others suit threat letters and burdensome document demands. The accused official sued the developer, alleging defamation. The developer responded that what he said was true, basically. The official served subpoenas on me and others last week and sent the township what I would call a catastrophically burdensome records request for things which basically include all documents and communications since 2011 that mention his name or relate to him. That's a lot of things, including anything on township letterhead. All of this has been happening in the background without publicity. But then the developer sued the accused township official last week, publicly laying out the whole sordid tale. That caused a firestorm of local media attention and raised public concern. Let me note again, I don't know whether the claims in the suit against the official are true. I hope they aren't. but they are worrying and we can't ignore them. We will investigate further on the township side, and this situation can't be allowed to interfere with the board doing the public's business. I want to assure Sycamore Township residents that whatever might have happened 10 years ago in our government, that was then. Voters have made some changes since then, and in the last 16 months, the board has caused changes at the top of the township staff and in how proposed real estate developments are handled. Our government culture is more customer service oriented and open than ever. And our meetings are live streamed and archived on YouTube, not conducted without public debate and mystery and darkness, as some governments might do. A year ago, we formed a Citizens Financial Advisory Committee to advise township officials about our finances and to keep an eye on our local government from a taxpayer perspective. This is the best place to live in Southwest Ohio. It deserves an accountable local government with accountable local officials. I assure you that we in the township will be monitoring these lawsuits for developments which might cause need for further investigation by the township as to past dealings. And if any of the terrible allegations in the news turn out to be true, the township will aggressively pursue whatever remedies are available to it, including seeking recovery of any financial losses which might have occurred and any justice the law can provide. If you have any questions about any of this, don't hesitate to ask me or one of the other trustees or any of the other officials in the township. And again, we hope these terrible allegations aren't true, but they've certainly gotten our attention and the public's. I've been hearing about them. I'm sure others here on the board have as well. So I thought we should address that at the start of our meeting here. Let's move on now. We have no public comments otherwise. So let's move on to the Sheriff's Patrol report, if we could, please. Lieutenant Tarr, if you can hop in. Thank you.
There you go. Is my audio on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Not much to report. I did want to go over one thing, and Sergeant Sovereign may have mentioned this at the last meeting. I know a lot of people didn't travel last year and probably got out of the habit, but we are offering or continue to offer vacation checks for those who are traveling out of the area this year. So if you are and you'd like us to check on your residents, please just call headquarters. It's 513-825-1500. And the on-duty deputy will take the information, and deputies will check your residence while you're gone.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else for us?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in. Lieutenant Tarr and I have been working on the capital plan for the Sheriff's Department, obviously centered around the vehicles. The township owns the vehicles. We currently have 14 of them, and they range in age from 2011 to 2018. So the newest vehicles we have are 3 years old now. We have 3 vehicles that are well over 120,000 miles, and they're starting to rack up some maintenance fees, as you would predict, in cars that are used that much. So we're going to be coming back. You're going to hear about a sketch of a capital plan from maintenance and the fire department also, in addition to the sheriff cars. We just want to give you kind of a lay of the land. We're going to come back with more specific proposals of what we'd like to get done. Right now on our wish list, as we look at it with the patrol cars, we feel there's 3 of them that should be replaced this year. The replacement cost for the vehicle that we're looking at, which is probably the best price for what you can get, is the Ford Explorer V6. And the price for that vehicle and all of the law enforcement bells and whistles be around $38,500. And that amount would go a little bit lower depending on trade-in value of the cars we may trade in their place. So we'll be coming back to the board soon with a more official proposal about all of these capital items. And then the other thing we're doing is spiffing up the 5-year capital plans so the board can have some look into the future when these things might come up.
Ray, can I ask a question regarding those Ford Explorers? Are those at $38,500? That's all retrofitted, correct? Including is that the state bid price or the state bid price plus retrofitting?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone about that right now? Any questions for Lieutenant Tar? Well, if we could push out through our social media occasionally that vacation check information, that would be helpful to residents. So let's see if we can do that on our township social media. But thanks, Lieutenant Tar, for being here tonight with us.
All right.
All right. Moving on to EMS and Fire Report then. Chief Penny, what do you have for us tonight?
Good evening, everyone. On the COVID side of things, we've only had 3 additional cases added to the quarantine at home from the last meeting. So that's really good news. We're involved in the Homebound vaccine distribution for the residents of the township that can't get out of their home. And we have a list of 9 residents so far that are in that position. So we originally we did end up receiving last Monday the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And as soon as we got it, they banned it. So we still have it and we're not allowed to do anything with it. So yesterday morning, we received the Pfizer vaccine that we're going to go forward with that. And we're set up for Thursday afternoon to go out and give all the vaccines to the homebound residents of the township. So that's totally underway. And hopefully if we are putting that out on the website with the link to any residents that fit that criteria of being homebound, and they would register through the CDC or the health department, and then they would be eligible to receive that vaccine through that. I believe it goes to the counseling of aging first, and then to the health department. So,
what sort of capacity do we have for that with doses, or is that a concern now? Can you get what you need?
Well, I'm not sure. We basically, once we receive how many residents we have, then I have to email the health department with how many vaccines we need, and then they deliver exactly what we need. So it's kind of time consuming, because when they register for it, then we let the health department know how many vaccines we need, and then we have to wait for them to deliver the vaccine to us based on their availability. And then once we get it, we have 5 days to get it out to everyone. So as soon as the day we get it, we'll notify the residents and set up a time within that 5-day period that we can get out and get the vaccine to them. It's still kind of tricky, because once you puncture the vaccine, you only have 6-hour window to give it. So we have to have it set up to where we have everybody lined up, ready to go. So we get it out to them in that 6-hour window. So it's a little tricky, but so far we're doing okay with it. If there aren't any questions on that, I'll move on to the Reading Road situation. Right. I know last meeting we talked about the problems with the Reading Road, and since then, myself and Doug Morath, the fire inspector, Ray, and Skylar took a visit down there, and we walked through most of the place and evaluated what was going on. We found numerous violations, illegal storage. We still got half a burnt down building sitting there. So Doug did.
Let me know if you want to share if you want me to share pictures.
Doug did yeah, you can do that if you want, Skylar. Doug did the violations through the fire code, and we have already sent them to the owners, so they should have them by now. And as far as the fire part of it, the violations on the safety of the building and the fire violations, that has been delivered to them, and we're waiting for a response. As you can see by these pictures, we have numerous places where the plywood's been torn off of the windows and the doors. There's total access into, there's junk everywhere. You can see all these doors are all jarred open, just an invitation for looters to go in. We found over on the Drake Hotel, we found a couple places where they're storing a lot of tires and a lot of combustible stuff that should never even be there. So it really creates a problem for us on that part of it. We did find out going through there that almost every bit of the copper piping and wiring has been ripped out of that place. The back of the carousel has a big transformer with all the wiring to run that complex. Everything has been stripped out and cut away. It couldn't be fired back up. That place couldn't be used if it wanted to be, because there's nothing, everything is copper's gone. So we definitely got some issues here that we have to pursue with. I know in Skylar's report, he's going to report on some more things that he can do on the zoning side of things.
Okay. Would you say from your evaluation there that the pictures kind of speak for themselves too, I guess, but would you describe this as being insecure?
Oh, yeah, definitely. See, here's the transformers here that should have wiring going to it. You can see down the bottom left-hand side, every bit of the cables have been cut, and it's none of it's operable whatsoever. The only reason I brought this to the attention of the board last meeting and Sharon at this meeting is because we have, as I mentioned last meeting, we've already had 2 fires in that place, so things are happening. There is signs of food and things that people have been staying there, have been camping out, and obviously they've been destroying the place along the way. So it's just a petri dish basically for just about everything, along with if somebody's in there when the place catches fire, they're going to be a problem there. So yeah, it's definitely an insecure building. And it's doing nothing but drawing a bunch of everything we don't want down there. So,
all right. Well, thanks for being part of the crew out there taking a look at everything there, so we could get this good picture of it and document all of this. Now, what can we do about it?
Well, there is a couple things that we can do. Skylar, I'll let Skylar kind of talk about that, because there is some things in the Ohio Revised Code along with some zoning stuff that Skylar has. So I'll let him kind of talk about that part of it. The only thing Ray had mentioned about the Capitol, we are looking at replacing some capital equipment ourselves. We have a Quint ladder fire truck. It's a fire engine and ladder truck combined runs out of the North Station, and we really need to look at start getting that unit replaced. It's a 1998 vehicle. It's well into its replacement date. We should have replaced it in 2017. We've been hanging on to it. We really should go ahead and start planning on getting that thing replaced. And then we also have 2 staff vehicles that are getting some age on them. We need to look at replacing those as well. And then the other ticket item was I really like to, we have a trailer, a 28-foot trailer up there that has all of our hazmat equipment in it, has some lighting, some tarps, things that we use on incidences. And I really like to go into a van type of truck and put that into a truck rather than a trailer. It's very difficult to manage the trailer. We have to maintain a fairly hefty pickup truck up there in order to tow it. And it's if we do have to use that vehicle, it takes a long time to get it hooked up to a vehicle. It's one of those type of trailers that you have to use the stabilizing bars and put it all together and hook it all up, and it's very time consuming. If I went into a regular van, I could just have somebody drop off of the engine and drive it behind. And we use that vehicle for the protection of the interstate with hazmat, and we also have to use it with light out chemical with any, if they have any instances, then we respond up there and team up with their crews up there as well.
So by a
So
van,
Chief-
are you thinking
Yeah.
like a straight truck, or are you thinking an actual van? Or
We're looking at it's a Freightliner type of van. It's a bigger like step.
You mean the tall one, right, Chief? The
Please?
tall vans, the tall van that Freightliner makes,
Yeah,
where we
Yeah.
can stack stuff in, on the sides. Yeah, that's good.
I would
Makes the
say
most
you
sense.
would compare it to like a big size UPS truck
Mhm.
type of thing. It'd be something like that. And when we get closer to working on it, I'll show you pictures of it and show you kind of what the idea, what we're trying to do. But
Okay.
to hook that big trailer up and try to pull it down the road right now would probably be a disaster. It's been sitting for so long. The tires on are probably about gone on it, and it's just not feasible to try to do what we want to do with it. So having it in a motorized van like that would make it so much easier and a quicker response on top of it.
Do any of these vehicles, if we end up replacing them, do they have resale value of any kind, or are they junk?
No, the Quint would be very little. It's a pretty old truck. Matter of fact, that Quint is so old that it still has the 4 drum brakes on it, which they pretty much banned. They don't even make a truck anymore with drum brakes. They're all disc brakes. And to get that thing to stop is really difficult because of the old brake system on it. So we really haven't been using it other than just a backup unit because of its age and because of how hard it is to get it to stop. So the quicker we get rid of that, the better. The 2 staff cars we have probably have some value to them. You know, they're probably $7,000 or $8,000 a piece, probably is what we could get out of them. So when we get to that point, we can definitely put them on the governor's or that gov website and sell it that way, auction it off. And then next, I'm not going to do it this year, but probably in the next year, we're probably going to have to replace the old 2007 ambulance, one of the internationals that we bought. We bought 2 ambulances at the same time back in 2017 or 2007, but the one of them, if you remember, got totaled from the crash, and we had it back and had it re-chassised. So it's basically a new squad, so it's okay. But the other unit that we bought at the same time is still the original 2007. It's going to be need replaced, probably in the next year or so.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Chief Finney?
Yeah, Chief, why don't you do this for us? Make a priority list. What do you want on top first and second? Did you do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Chief.
Okay, I'll let Skylar finish up the Reading Road thing on his report.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you want to finish up that conversation or wait until the planning and zoning portion?
We could wait until planning and zoning, I think, at this point, since we already kind of deviated a little away from it. So
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do roads first. So Tracy, you are up then.
All right, first thing I have is, as you know, this past weekend or this past Saturday was document shredding. I know all 3 of you made an appearance there. It was very busy. That is a service that the residents really love. And we brought in 14,700 pounds, so 7 tons of documents in 4 hours. So extremely busy. That's and it works out much better being behind the township building. We try to consolidate it with Trash Bash. Thought it would be great to do it all because it's a recycling weekend, but there was just too much traffic. It worked out much better behind the township building the way we used to do it. So we'll probably continue to do it that way.
Tracy, about what does that cost us each time we do it?
I'd have to get back to you with those numbers. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure.
The reason I ask, I had some residents ask me if we'd consider doing it twice a year, and I think we usually do it once, don't we?
We do it once.
Yeah.
We normally do it in April after what is normally tax day.
season. Right. Well, if you could let us know in the next meeting what the approximate numbers are, it might be something to think about doing it in conjunction with each Trash Bash. and doing one in the fall, maybe two. But if it's cost prohibitive, maybe not.
Yeah, we don't do a fall trash bash.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We only did it in the fall last year because COVID.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
COVID on my brain here. But document shredding, on the other hand, is a slightly smaller scale thing to do too. So it could be feasible to do another if cost-wise it made sense. It may not make sense cost-wise either.
Yeah.
I'd just be interested to see the numbers.
I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it's, we can check out those prices. It's not that it's so busy that they're lined up out the street. We don't fill both those trucks.
Mhm.
So, it's not like Trash Bash where
Right.
they're lined up down the street. So,
Yeah.
but I'll get back with you on those prices because I do not have those off on the top of my head right now.
Okay. And I interrupted you then. So go ahead. Thanks.
So the weekend before we had Trash Bash up north, we hauled out 13 dumpsters to Rumpke. We hauled out 2 dumpsters of appliances and steel to recycling, several hundred tires. We've got our Trash Bash coming up this weekend at Bechtold, where we also take the hazardous waste. So, if we don't get more snow, since it's supposed to snow tonight, I think we'll be okay. But the Bechtold one's always busier. Last year we pulled out over 25 dumpsters down at Bechtold. So a couple years in a row we've been extremely busy down there. So we'll see what this weekend brings. Other than that, as you know, Kugler Mill's being worked on. It's closed except for local traffic in between Blue Ash and Kenwood. They have finished installing the water main. They're currently working on storm sewer. And our road program has started. They're up in Trowbridge replacing curbs. We're getting ready for that program to start also. So I'll jump right into our capital plan. I believe you all had
Question for you first. Sorry, you mentioned the Kugler Mill project. I know that'll be shifting over to the other side of Kenwood Road toward the highway once they get done with what they're doing now. We talked in one of our recent meetings about making sure that they were coordinating with whatever development activity was going to start happening with those new houses on Kugler Mill. Have you had any contact with anybody about that?
I have not. I've tried to reach out to Waterworks. I mean, that's who we're really concerned about, that we don't end up with 11 cuts. But it doesn't look like the schedules are going to work out. So I am going to reach out to the county. I mean, after putting all this money into it, if we're going to have 11 cuts in that short area, I believe we need that whole span right there, milled and filled, curb to curb. We can't spend all this money and have 11 cuts across the road.
Yeah. Thanks.
It would not look good for us or the county or anybody.
Yeah.
Schedules just are not working out. Especially with the way those 11 houses are probably going to be drawn out. There's only I forget what's the number. One of you might remember. There's a number of houses that have to be completed. I believe it's 3.
Yeah, 3 initially.
Before the other development starts. So there's no way all 11 of those houses are going to be finished by the time because our project's going to be completed in a few months here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just not going to work. But I will continue to research that with the county and with Waterworks especially.
Thanks.
So I believe you all received something about our capital expenses for maintenance in your packet. I have made a couple slight changes to that. I've removed a couple of the lower price items and added a snow plow that we have to replace. And the cost of our dump trucks, I believe I had $2.25 in there, are actually going to be about $245 for the 2 of them. completely outfitted. So I want to bring this to you. We're probably going to come back in May for actual to get the money appropriated. But I wanted to let you see what we're looking at. As you know, I gave you a 5-year capital plan last year. These trucks were on that plan for this year. We're already a little behind. We usually do this in January, so we're a few months behind already. Plus the fact that there's a shortage of chips, computer chips that are going into vehicles. So they're saying that the trucks are being delayed. So it'll be probably the end of this year at the earliest that we would receive these trucks, but we really need to get moving on them. These 2 trucks are replacing 2 of the small dumps that are basically the same size. One's a 2005, one's a 2007. Beds are really rusting out, and one of them's particularly starting to cost us a lot of downtime and maintenance. I believe you saw on there that we had a utility bed for the mechanic on there. We are just going to take one of the beds off the newer truck, and we would like to put the utility bed on there. It's not a truck that can be used every day and plowing snow and the way we use it now, but it's plenty good to reutilize as a mechanic's truck that he would use out on the road. So the total for and I wanted to talk to you about, as you see there, I had salt conveyor on there for about 10 grand. That is a shared cost among 8 townships. That's about an $80,000 purchase. There's 8 townships basically here on the east side that want to go in on that together. There has been a maintenance agreement put together for that also. We've all been sharing a conveyor for years, one that Anderson bought years ago. It's no longer really functional. So rather than one person just buying it, because you're only going to use it a couple times a year to fill your barns, we thought it would be good to share that cost. You know, we share a lot with other townships as it is. This would be the first time that we have actually had a joint purchasing venture. But I think this would save us all a lot of money and work out well for us.
It's a good thing.
So our capital expenses that we're looking at are right around 300,000 for the year. 306 actually is what I have. So if you don't have any, and I believe I also supplied you in your packets information about the truck.
Mm-hmm.
You had asked for some specs, so I supplied a packet, some specs for the truck and for the equipment. But that price that I showed you, that is a total outfitted and out the door.
And this is through the government buying program, so not something that needs to go out to bid. Is that correct?
Well, the truck body equipment, that is actually a state bid. And the other one, the bid that I gave you for McCluskey, that is actually under state bid.
That's even better.
So that's even better. We've put together the state bid, went out, got that federal bid also from Sourcewell, who we've used in the past. We have done this before. Anytime you can get it under state bid, you're looking good. And it's not just a few dollars. It's somewhere around $5,000 to $7,000 under.
Good work in getting that then. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for doing that, Trace. Thanks
Jim,
for
you
doing
broke
that.
up there. Say that again.
I just said thank you for doing that, Tracy.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, the only other thing I have, and I believe I supplied this in your packet also, was the proposal from Carpenter Marty. If you remember, we had an RFQ that went out for engineering services for the culverts in Dillonvale that we need to do head wall work on. We rated all those firms, came back. brought to you at the last meeting that Carpenter Marty was the highest scoring one. You told me to go ahead and get a proposal from them. So I wanted to show you this. This proposal's $48,600 in all. That includes all the surveying and monuments finding. So if you take the surveying out, because they're doing everything in-house, the actual engineering for the project is right around 8%, which is extremely reasonable. So I'm very pleased with these guys. I actually met them in the field today. They are getting ready to get started. As you know, this project is being paid for by the 25% unencumbered TIFs. So we are on a time crunch to get that done this year. You know, in our RFQ, we put that it had to be completed. Engineering had to be completed at the latest at the end of August. So Carpenter Marty has approached me and said, I believe that's too late. I think we need to get it done in July. I've met with them today. We're going to clear some spots. As long as you approve this proposal there, you're going to start surveying immediately. He's telling me today he believes he can have this done by the end of June so that we can get our bid out. You can't ask for more than that, considering we're already 2/3 of the way through April.
So what do you need from us right now?
So really, I just need a motion, and I will come back. Is Deepak on yet?
No.
He is not. No.
Okay.
He'll be here shortly. You'll get a
Okay.
resolution presented to you next time, right, Tracy?
Yes. So that's correct. So the next time we will have a resolution and a PO for you.
All right. So you don't need approval to move toward that now, or do you?
I don't
Yeah,
think
I would
so.
like to.
Oh, you
Well, I
want
would
one?
like
Okay.
I would like a motion to proceed, just so that the engineering firm knows that it's okay for them to get started.
All right. Is there a motion to do?
A motion?
All right. Is there a second? I'll second that. We have a motion to proceed with this Carpenter Marty proposal, which we'll put into a resolution going forward. But to give approval now, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Porter, will you call the roll on the vote, please?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Unless there's any further questions, gentlemen, that's all I have.
Just a few quick things, because you know I always have questions. In our last regular meeting, we were talking about the Duke concerns about the Heitmeyer neighborhood and other neighborhoods in the area and power frequently going out. You and Mr. Warwick had a meeting, I believe, with a Duke representative after that meeting. And I know I've seen some emails after that as to what's going on, but is there anything you can report to the public as to what happened and what's going on with that?
Well, we have met with them. They pulled all the records from the area within the last 2 years, showed us what the outages were caused by. One was a car wreck. One was a workers that hit a line. The last outage that covered the whole Kenwood area, if you remember that bigger outage that we had, it was actually an animal that got into their substation that caused that. So actually there were only, I believe, 2 outages because of trees in the backyards that were hitting branches. I know there's been emails back and forth. They were not scheduled until 2022 to go back into that area and do any vegetation control, but they are putting on a priority and hitting a couple addresses this year to get that done. So as of right now, that's all I have to report. Their feeling, I know it's heightened because they've had so much trouble over the years, but their feeling was that it was not an overage, not a big abundance of outages. I said, well, that's a lot more than I've had in 2 years at my house.
Yeah.
But there were, there were a lot of areas that were a lot worse. I asked them to check into the pilot program that they had talked to us about a few years ago, where they were talking about underground. I know there was another community that their outages were much worse. I believe they were doing that there. Brett, our liaison has not gotten back to us with the details of that, I don't believe, but he was not aware of a program that was going on for that right now. So as of right now, it's just going to be vegetation control to try to keep all the trees away from the lines.
Yeah. Well, that's a start at least. All right. Thanks. One other question. I don't know if you have an answer to this either, but these projects, these ambitious projects we are starting on with the 25% of TIF money, what happens if they aren't done by the end of the year, God forbid, like happened with the maintenance building not being done on time?
I do not have an answer to that. I am just, we will get them done.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Anyone else have a question?
With our big project, we have a great contractor. If you've been down Montgomery Road, they're working over there right now. They want to leave there and come straight to the township so they don't leave the area. If that happens, we'll be way ahead of schedule.
Very good. Any questions from anybody else for Mr. Kellums? Tom, you're muted.
Tracy, I just want to thank you and your crew for the great job, both on the North Trash Bash and also on the shredding. They did an excellent job. And I know in the North Trash Bash that Saturday, they got drenched pretty good because it rained pretty hard. So they did an excellent job, and hopefully it's going to be a good trash bash this weekend as well. So thanks to all you guys.
Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Yeah. Let me echo that too. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Kellums? Well, thanks, Tracy. On to Mr. Miller then for planning and zoning, and welcome Mr. Desai.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. So I guess I'll take care of the agenda item first, and then we'll circle back around to the report on Reading Road. So at our last trustee meeting, we discussed some issues we're having with the implementation of the pay protocols for our zoning boards, both zoning commission and BZA. So we do have a resolution in your packet. Let me just go ahead and share this. All we're doing is cleaning up language. We're not changing pay rates or anything like that. This is simply an amendment to the resolution from 2013, 2013-02, which established this pay rate. And under section 1, we have members of the Sycamore Township Zoning Commission and the Sycamore Township Board of Zoning Appeals shall be compensated as independent contractors at a rate of $100 per month. Members may miss one meeting per year without effect to the compensation to be paid, and additional absences will result in a 1-month reduction in compensation per absence after the first. So still a little wordy, but I think it's as straightforward as we can get. We want to give that 1 meeting grace period. If there's attendance issues after that, then we'll reduce pay accordingly. Honestly, if we get into a scenario where a member of either of these, whether it's the board or the commission, is absent that much, we may need to discuss either them resigning because they have other commitments, or discuss a different resolution to that.
Skylar?
We have great boards. I don't think that hasn't been an issue. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I don't think we've had that issue in the past. I think it's been, we've always had good attendance, so I don't know that we're going to run into that. We got 2 great boards, so.
Yeah, and I'll go on the record. I've been in planning and zoning or municipal management in multiple communities. These are by far the most professional zoning boards that I have ever worked with. We are truly blessed with the quality of our members. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about our group.
I would agree
Scott,
from my
I'm glad
experience
we're-
in seeing them. Go ahead, Mr. LaBarbera.
Skylar, I'm glad we're taking care of this because, as I mentioned last meeting, Jeff Heidel brought up to me, a member of the Zoning Appeals Board, that apparently he didn't get a couple of paychecks last year. So hopefully, I know this is not retroactive to last year, but hopefully this will now straighten things out. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to mention before the board takes action on this. I currently have this written as retroactive to January 1st. If we have past issues, I don't know if you want to go back 6 months. I'll leave that to your discretion. And again, the whole reason for this, we're not changing the actual rate of pay. There was simply a discrepancy between the original written resolution and what the actual practice was. And I think that caused some confusion for us last year, especially with the changeover in the administration.
And just for the public's reference, then the resolution previously said per actual meeting as opposed to monthly. The practice had become paying monthly, on the other hand, for some period of time, which went off resolution and was paying money that wasn't necessarily approved to be paid. Then we went back to what the resolution said, which upset everyone's expectations, and understandably so. So this will now put the monthly payment practice in place, which we all, I think is justified from what we discussed in a prior meeting about it. So in terms of going back retroactively before the first of the year, my suggestion for that would be we go with the resolution as is. But if you determine, in fact, there were times last year where those expectations got upset, bring that to the board and we'll look at that in the future as to whether there's something to do. But we'd be looking at a different year's appropriations then too. Right. And I don't know how complicated that might make things. So, okay. All right. Well, unless there are other comments, why don't you present the resolution?
Okay, so we have a resolution amending rates of pay for the Sycamore Township Zoning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, dispensing with a second reading and declaring an emergency.
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the resolution and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
All right, I guess I do have a question just to clarify too, since we're changing what we might have gone into at the start of the year. Does this line up with existing appropriations, or do we need to amend those at some point in the year to make sure this syncs up with what we'll be paying for the zoning members?
No, again, this is our current rates of pay. The issue comes in was, if we didn't actually hold a meeting due to lack of an agenda, we didn't issue payment. But at the beginning of the year for appropriations, we are assuming that
all meetings will occur.
There'll be a monthly meeting, right?
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you.
So that shouldn't change. Okay. I'm getting a little feedback here. Hang on. So we need to circle back around to the Reading Road properties, the Blue Tide properties. Those are, as we discussed, currently in foreclosure. There has been a receiver assigned by the courts. As Chief mentioned, we did do a site visit. Doug Morath has issued fire code violations. We issued we issued public nuisance, zoning code, and property maintenance code violations earlier today on this. It's racking up to about a dozen different violations that we've cited. So Those are being sent to both property owner, lien holders, county auditor, and basically we're just kind of setting up the groundwork for some kind of enforcement. Once we are in the situation where both of these properties already have open public nuisance claims against them. We have a court order on the Drake, and we also have an open public nuisance from the Board of Trustees from the last time this caught on fire. That was never closed out because they didn't fully abate or remediate the issue. So this is just kind of layering on some additional items here at this point. And also in 2016, actually, let me go back here. So our general public nuisance for trash and debris, we actually use Ohio Revised Code. That's section 505.87 for that. That's where the Board of Trustees declare a nuisance, and we have the ability within a period of time to go in and abate that issue. We send them a bill. If they don't pay it, then we put the lien on the property. There is another Ohio Revised Code section that we could use, and it looks like the township has used on these properties in the past. That's 505.86. And this has to do with the actual building and structure. So it says if a Board of Township Trustees by resolution, they may provide for removal, repair, or securance of buildings or other structures in the township that have been declared insecure, unsafe, or structurally defective by any fire department under contract with the township or county building department. So we obviously have our fire department declaring that these buildings are unsafe. We need to have a follow-up meeting with our law director to determine the extent of what action we can take under this code. And he and I began discussions about that earlier today. It looks like in the past they were used to secure the building, but now we have a different scenario out there where there's actually parts of the building that have caught fire and are truly unsafe, not just unsecure. So how far we can push that remains up for discussion.
If there's a foreclosure underway as to these properties, what do we know the timing of how that's going to play out? Because that might affect when we would want to do something if we did something too.
Sure. Well, the fact that we have there's already a receiver for the property. We're pushing all this out because that the receiver has a lot of authority in Ohio to affect change on the property. So I'm hoping that with all of this, we certainly get their attention, and hopefully we have somebody that, a property manager of sorts, that's going to be responsive to us. As far as how this plays out timing wise, I don't have a good answer for you right this moment. There's a lot of moving parts to this. So we're just trying to do our part to kind of stack the deck up front. It's been less than a month since the original filing. So like I said, we're trying to get everything in play as soon as possible. The one thing I should say about 505.86, that does require a resolution by the trustees, again, declaring the property a nuisance, and ordering that remediation. That has a 30-day notice window from the date that is approved. So to get the ball rolling on that, I don't know if we want to wait until the next regular trustee meeting or if we want to hold a special meeting to do that earlier. So I'll talk to Mr. Desai on that, and we can make a recommendation to you in the near future.
As to the citations that were issued today, is there a response deadline or period for those? We should factor that in.
Yeah. So I believe it's a week. And again, the delay here is actually reduced because they're already already in violation. They already have open public nuisance claims against them. So I think a lot of this is really just assessing the current situation of the property, and we still have the authority to go in. We just we need to see what kind of cooperation we're going to get from the receiver.
So if we go in and do it, we have then a lien on the property to secure our repayment of our costs. Is that correct?
We have that legal process in place that we can either bill or get that lien on. So
If I could chime in here, I'll add that back with the fire, the fire building that you saw on the pictures, that fire took place last year in February 2020. And right after that fire, within a week, we went down and met with the owner, and he promised us that he was going to clean that area up, clean up all the debris, and totally fence in the whole complex to keep people out, and none of it's been done. And it's
Chief,
been over a year.
Yeah, was that was in February? I thought that happened. I thought the large structure fire was later in the year.
I don't think it was somewhere in February, Mark, I believe. February or March, but it's been a year at least.
Okay. I believe we've had the property officially in nuisance, and that case has been opened, I think, at least since September.
Well, if you and Mr. Desai could have a resolution for us, at least at our next meeting, but if you determine it's prudent that we might want to have a special meeting as to that, contact Mr. Warwick and we can make arrangements for that. But the sooner we can get something done there, the better, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Okay. Deepak, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good summary of where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any questions about that? All right. Anything else for us on the zoning side?
I do have a follow-up meeting with the Reading Road Corridor Group. Again, that's the administrative body, the multi-jurisdictional group from represented by those jurisdictions in and around Reading Road Corridor County, the city of Cincinnati, Reading, Amberley Village, and the port. The port is certainly taking an interest in these properties and this foreclosure action. So I won't go into too much detail with that, but they are certainly watching this case quite closely. So there may be some action from them in the near future as well.
Skylar, do we have a nuisance property on 4th?
We do not anymore. I'm happy to. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to report that the property owner is working with us. It's 11th hour, but they were able to abate the property issues on their own. It was actually after the trash bash, which is kind of odd. They had a great opportunity to utilize that that township resource, but they did do it on their own. A lot of times this happens. Not every property that we put in violation comes in front of the Board of Trustees. We're always working to get voluntary compliance, and like I said, it was 11th hour this time, but I'm happy to say it happened.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other zoning concerns from your end?
That's all I have for tonight.
I've got a question for you. We were emailing back and forth about today that some residents have been concerned about in Heitmeyer Farms on Bayberry. There's a somewhat apparently commercial truck with no commercial markings that isn't really large but has a bucket on it that's just been parked there, and the neighbors say it hasn't moved, and it's even plugged into an electrical cable to the house. Can you explain just generally what the rules are for things like that and why this one's on the edge of being compliant rather than non-compliant?
Sure. So first off, anytime you're dealing with the right of way, it's difficult to utilize zoning as kind of your first tool, or your first police power, if you will. Typically, when you're talking about zoning, you're talking about issues of private property, what someone is doing on their property, how they're placing things, how they're maintaining it. Once you go out into the public domain, the right of way, the police power that we have starts to kind of be diminished. With that being said, we do have some provisions for on-street parking in residential areas, and we do allow for smaller work vehicles, commercial vehicles in residential areas. If I'm a Spectrum repairman, or serviceman, and I bring my work van home, that can be parked in my drive, or in a garage, or even on the street out in front. The question is in order, it's a matter of intensity. I can have a small van, a minivan of sorts, but we don't necessarily want tractor trailers in our residential areas. So where the township, by policy, by zoning resolution, where we've drawn that line is anything larger than 1.5 ton as a standard is prohibited within those residential areas. The truck in question, it looks like, I don't know if it's a Chevy or Ford, but it's that 250 2500 chassis, I believe, which is I think a 3/4 ton. So it's well under that threshold. Even with the work cab, it doesn't fit our definition of prohibited commercial vehicle. Now, running a cable, a power cable across the public right of way to keep that plugged in, that's immediately a health and safety issue, and it's tripping hazard on the sidewalks. That's something we can go take care of right away. But as far as that vehicle being there, I believe it's either properly tagged or it's within the grace period that's currently allowed right now because of the this pandemic status. It appears to be operable. It doesn't fit the junk vehicle standards. I don't have any authority to deem it a violation. As a matter of fact, it's quite lawful where it's at.
What if it never moves, on the other hand? Some neighbors have reported it doesn't move. I don't know if it's used for commuting or not, but if it just sits there on the street unmoving for months, is that a concern?
Again, zoning is not the best tool for this type of issue. I don't have any provisions for that. Typically in the past, I believe that the county sheriff's office has marked tires. I don't believe they're currently practicing that right now. So, it does fall into this, again, this gray area of enforcement. So I don't know if Tracy or Lieutenant Tarr want to weigh in on that piece, but I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I would have to ask Lieutenant Tarr how he feels about it. I know, we've talked about this in a couple of meetings in the past. The sheriff's office used to come out, any police officer did, and they'd mark tires, so they'd have 48 hours. But from what I understand, as long as it is now a properly licensed vehicle, that is no longer a practice. And now with COVID, you're getting 2 to 3 months extra to even get your plates. So even if they're expired, I don't think that is going to come into play. My other question for Mr. Tarr for Lieutenant Tarr would be, we're having a problem with trailers that are parked on the street without being hooked up to a vehicle. Now, they are properly tagged, but I always thought before that a trailer had to be hooked up to a vehicle so that it was mobile and not an obstruction of the right of way. But I'll let Lieutenant Tar handle all those questions.
Tracy, I'm glad you weighed in on that. That's where I was going next.
So I think we've got a couple things. The first thing, as to the length of time that a vehicle can sit on the roadway, and whether, Mr. James, whether it can just sit there for months. No, it can't. The problem is there was I'm not sure if it was a 2018 or 2019 decision. Someone just mentioned, we used to just go out and chalk tires, and then you could tell if a vehicle had moved or not. That was deemed an unlawful search and seizure. We're no longer able to do that. So we have virtually, and I've talked to some surrounding agencies to see what they're doing. I haven't come up with any way that, other than sitting a guy in front of a car for 24 hours to see if it moves or filming it. I'm not really sure how we could verify that a car hasn't moved. So our enforcement action on that is completely, it's out the window.
Some of the neighbors have been filming it, I think. I got a video from one of them today, but of course that was a momentary thing, just pointing it out and talking about it. Well, and the problem with that, Mr. James, is you run it. It's an evidentiary issue. When was it filmed? Who filmed it? It's a nasty problem. Skylar, we spoke about this a couple of meetings ago. I don't have. It's not that it's not something we're looking at, but I don't have a solution right now. Is it possible to contact the resident, on the other hand, or just knock on the door and note the vehicle's been there?
So that's what we're doing. And we Dillonvale area, we had one this week where, we went and talked to the owner, and the car's moved, but then, the residents are complaining, it moves right away, but then it doesn't move for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't have a great answer for as far as how we enforce whether a car can sit for more than 24 hours. The trailers, they can, Tracy, as long as they're registered, they can sit on the roadway as long as they, conform to any other parking restrictions. There's not a lot we can do about it. They do not have to be hooked up to a vehicle. And then I think the third question was about the licensing. Is a vehicle licensed? And with the governor's, with the suspension of the licensing restrictions, or the extension of the requirements to have your tags renewed, there's not a lot we can do until that's enforced on that end, or that's relieved on that end.
Okay.
Hey, as far as the trailers go, is that something in the ORC, or would the township trustees, as a home rule government, be allowed to pass a resolution that would say trailers had to be hooked up to a vehicle?
I think that might be better question, or answered better by Deepak, but I believe you could come up with a resolution that we could enforce, like your others.
All right. Similar consideration too. This particular truck, I hate to single out a particular one, but it may be within the tonnage requirements, but it's also a bucket truck, which is not a typical commercial commuting vehicle. Even for someone who might use a commercial truck with a enclosure on the back, is there anything we can do about that?
Short answer, unfortunately, is no.
I don't mean under our current code. I mean, could we have a resolution restricting parking of vehicles of that sort?
That would be a question for Deepak.
That would definitely be a question for Deepak. I would. We're going to get into the weeds and start and create a lot of new categories of of commercial vehicles. So the heating and cooling van is allowed, but a work truck with a work bed on it that has doors might be allowed, but then if it has this other box or something, where do we draw the line? And there's such a variety of different types of equipment that you can have on a vehicle, I'm not sure how short and sweet this regulation could be. We can Deepak, Tracy, we can certainly talk about this and see if we can figure it out. I think the current zoning resolution attempts to do that by focusing on the chassis and its weight its weight capabilities. It's easy to look at a chassis and say that's a half ton, that's a quarter ton, that's a ton and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Those terms might be somewhat antiquated though, because towing capabilities have changed quite a bit over time. Maybe more of a volume standard, maximum length, maximum height, might be something we can talk about. But if we
put your heads together over that now, we don't need to continue discussing it now, I guess, but
that's
if you
fine.
can come up with some thoughts.
Yeah,
We'll talk.
Skylar, I like the idea, rather than wading into all of this, I like the idea of Lieutenant Tar just not rather than come up with resolutions or what have you. Try that idea.
Okay.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll move on to Law Director Report if you're ready, Mr. Desai.
Yes, sir, Mr. James. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of updates on some cases that are out there. First, in the House of Brow case, we have our hearing on all motions, most importantly, the motion to enforce the settlement agreement, scheduled for May 26th, so that's about a month away. The other litigation going on right now is the appeal that Ms. Willis made of the BZA's decision approving the parking lot for Muller High School. My understanding from talking to Muller's attorney is that they are engaged in ongoing settlement negotiations with Ms. Willis. However, they have not reached an agreement. So we are now coming up on what we like to refer to as our briefing deadlines. Ms. Willis's brief is going to be due here in about 10 days, and then our brief will be due at the beginning of June. So hopefully they're able to reach resolution, but right now the appeal continues to move forward with some briefs due. I'll entertain any questions about either of those cases anyone has.
Question about Ms. Willis's suit. If she is engaged in negotiations, and I think there's some other neighbors involved in that possibly with her, with Muller, and they come to some resolution, where does that leave us in all of this? Do we need to approve this proposed settlement too, if it's a change to what was previously approved by Board of Zoning Appeals? Or
correct.
Does the court
we're named as the defendant appellee. So ultimately, any settlement is going to require our blessing.
And at that point, though, is the further contest period extinguished if some third-party neighbor who wasn't involved in the suit before doesn't like the settlement?
Well, I believe their time is run, right? They had 30 days after the BZA decision to appeal it to the court, and the only interested party who filed a appeal was Ms. Willis.
All right. And as to the House of Brows case, I drove by there a couple hours before our meeting. No change in the signage there from what we've seen before. Any progress on the front of it just getting done that you've heard of?
I do know that there was a meeting between a representative of the property owner and the zoning department to explain that the masonry work needed to come up to the sign face, and that the panels couldn't just be non-existent. You had to at least put white panels in. So we'll see whether or not they comply with that, but that'll all be part of the motion that gets heard by the court on May 26th.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Desai from anyone else? All right. Thanks, Deepak. Let's move on to our administrator report then. Mr. Warwick.
I have several large POs, and I'd like to make a request, Mr. Chairman, that we bundle a couple of them together because they're rather routine. It's going to be if you allow me to do that, it's going to be very hard for Skylar to keep up and find all these in the stack. I just make that suggestion out of efficiency and time.
Okay.
So the first is 5 purchase orders, and these hyper technically we wouldn't really bring them before you because this is paying the schools their TIF tax money, and obviously we're obligated to do that through the TIF contracts. But let me go through, and I would like to just recap all 5 and then ask for a motion to approve the 5 payments to school districts. First is sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So nothing on the screen?
No,
if you can
because
get them, well, if you can get them up there quickly, great. But if not,
yeah, it's gonna be tough, Skylar, but you can try.
and for the public's reference, these have been published on our website in the pre-meeting packet for review. So
right. PO 8804 Great Oaks Career Campuses, $495,469.64. The next one is 8805 Indian Hill Exempted Village Schools, $2,597,404.02. 8806 is Princeton City Schools, and that's $183,676.52. 8807 is Deer Park Schools, $277,088.21. And finally, 8808, Sycamore Schools, $87,909.20. I would ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
all right, you broke up a little bit. Mr. LaBarbera seconded. Any discussion as to these? Mr. Porter, will you call the roll?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Thank you. I now have 10 operating POs. All of this money has been appropriated by the board, and we have been encumbering it or putting POs against the money just kind of ratably as we do 2 things: get a handle on our spending and move to the new software. So I'll go quickly through the 10. First is 8726A, dump fees for $7,333. Next is 8729B. This is road materials, just miscellaneous, various things, $50,000. 8730A is for building cost maintenance, $4,000. Next is 8732B for miscellaneous, once again, road materials, $32.59.11. 8733B is road uniforms, $3,622.34. 8734A, contract services for roads, $11,652.52. 8736B, fleet repair for road vehicles, $10,319.78. 8776A, this actually comes out of the local JEDs for park expenses, $33,334 and no cents. 8810, this one is the account is called Trash Bash. It's for $35,000. I think we're just requesting what's left there. I'm not sure that relates to the cost of this most recent single Trash Bash event, but I don't know. And I think Tracy has to look into that. But anyway, that's that one. And then finally, 8743A, fire prevention. This is money to pay our contracted fire inspector, $31,844.62. I would ask for the board's approval of those 10 operating POs.
Motion to approve.
And a second.
All right. Any questions or discussion about any of those POs from anyone? All right. Mr. Porter, will you call the roll as to those?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
I have 3 that I think we'll do separately. First is 8809, and it's for the ESID fees and assessments for the residential electric service setup that we have. Goes to Pacewell 2 LLC, and it's for $157,540.56.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Any discussion? And for the public's reference, these ESID fees are fees that are collected through tax mechanisms. Is that correct? And then dispersed back out, but not a cost to the township.
That's right.
Okay,
It's a pass-through.
thank you. Mr. Porter, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaBarbera,
aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
The next is PO 8812, and this is for the Kenwood Town Place. This is the pass-through to the Port Authority on the Kenwood Collection Garage, and it's $721,952.87.
Motion.
Second,
Any discussion? Mr. Porter?
LaBarbera,
Jim, your video faded.
aye.
Mr. James,
Would you repeat your vote, please, Jim?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Aye.
Mr. James,
All right. Aye.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, finally, is PO 8811 for your consideration. This would be the bond anticipation note that we're getting ready to renew. The township historically on this one has been aggressively paying down the road portion as opposed to the maintenance portion. And so if we went ahead and paid $279,229.02, that would completely retire the road portion and leave the rest of the funds flexible from the standpoint that whether they were renewed again as a ban or funded with a bond offering, all of those costs then could be paid out of TIF money, and we wouldn't have to do two things at once. So if you'd want to do that, it kind of follows what we've been doing, and it would make that set of money, if you will, clean. By the way, Fairfield ended up their issue at 0.22, and Andy Brossert, our bond guy, is predicting when we do ours next week that we'll probably be in the 0.27 to 0.35 range, simply because we have it's callable and we have a little lesser credit rating than Fairfield. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So PO 8811, I'd ask the board to a motion to approve.
So can I, before I make a motion, can I get a better understanding of this? So we're talking about how much? 272,000, is that correct?
279.
$279,000. And if we could either pay it off or we could finance that with the rollover that we're doing at around a 0.25 to 0.30, is that correct?
That is correct.
So in other words, we would take the 279,000, which we're making 1.2 at roughly right now, and we would spend that instead of financing at 1.25, 1.27, whatever we might be at. And so we're missing out on almost an entire percentage point in interest on the 279,000. Is that correct?
That math is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
A percent of that isn't much, and it cleans it up and gets it nimble, I guess, for going forward. And that's what we've been doing. So
Okay, so this cleans up the other funds, so they're purely TIF at that point for what would be reissued as bonds. What consideration should we take into account as we consider that then? Is it an accounting headache to not have that cleaned up now as opposed to refinancing it? Because number-wise, basically, I guess we do make a little money if we don't redo it, but if the administrative hassle of hanging on to it versus the little bit of money it would bring in is worth considering, can you explain?
well, I can't plead that it's an administrative hassle because that's what we do here is we administrate. So it's not that. I'm just simply in my sick little mind. I just like to clean it up and get it nimble. That's the reason I bring it before you.
Okay. Is there a motion as to approving this PO?
Mr. Porter, do you want to weigh in on this?
Not really.
Well, Mr. Porter,
Okay,
maybe you
then
could Mr. Porter, maybe you can just address the math, make sure that I'm not misstating anything.
No, I think everyone agrees on the math.
So in other words, we're giving up about a percent on this money if we don't pay it off, and then we keep it in our investments as we currently have it. Is that correct?
Which is,
That's correct.
yeah, just under $3,000.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second? I'm going to hold off on seconding it right now. It appears Mr. Weidman is too. Unless there's a compelling reason to do this versus not. I understand it would clean things up, and I'd like to pay off debt, of course, here. But my understanding is with the bonds that we will be issuing, they'll be callable on 30 days notice, and we could pay it off anyway if we want then. So this doesn't really add to the cost of doing that, might still earn a little more money. I'm inclined not to second for that reason. Mr. Warwick, do you want to plead a case for going otherwise?
No, I've said my piece. I can move on in life. And Rob, I'll give you a new number on the check run because that check comes out now.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And
Then we will.
I'm fine with that, Tom. Mr. James, I'm fine with that. I'm fine.
Okay. All right. We'll, so motion failed or is withdrawn, one or the other, but we will move on. Anything else, Mr. Warwick?
That's all I have.
All right. Then we have fiscal officer report, and we need an updated number there then, I guess. Do you need a moment for that as to the check run?
No, I have it. The check run number, the new check run number would be $5,059,917.18.
And receipts are $11,099,941.52. The reason for our taxes came in, and as you heard, that we paid a lot of the money out to the schools. That's why the large number this month.
Yeah. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further
There
discussion?
is a
as to that?
second.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Porter, will you call the roll on that then, please?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weidman.
Aye.
All right. Mr. Porter, anything else as to bills and receipts?
Nothing further.
All right. Thank you, sir. Trustee comments then. We'll move on to that. Mr. Weidman, you are up.
Yeah, I have a couple of items. I received some communication from a Dillonville resident concerned about parking and no parking zones throughout Dillonville by some residents, but especially by delivery trucks that are creating what she considers to be a safety issue. I'm working with Lieutenant Tara on this to address the situation. Hopefully we can find some kind of resolution on that. The other thing is, as a member of the Hamilton County COVID defense team, I can tell you that distribution of both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine continues. And we're hopeful that the J&J vaccine will be back on stream shortly. I know that there was a question of the number of units of vaccine that were allocated to the Homebound program. And I believe countywide, the first number was 1,000 units of vaccine. I think we're using 9. If the chief is, if I remember what Chief said, we're using 9 of those units. There is always room for additional allocation, but I think that was the original seed of units of vaccine was 1,000. So combination of that, we're hoping that the J&J is back online because it allows us to give only one shot to people that are homebound. It's also going to be pretty critically important. The plan originally was using J&J to get these students vaccinated before they leave campus throughout all the campuses in Ohio. And by doing that with one vaccine shot, it's much better than two. So that's where we're at on the vaccine. Finally, I will just address the original comments that Mr. James had at the beginning of the meeting, and that is that if you follow these cases at all, you will find that there are some serious allegations made that are completely false. And at the advice of my attorney, I'm not going to go into detail about these, but you can pull them up on the website of the clerk of courts, both in Warren County and in Hamilton County. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, I'm confident that I will prevail in both of those cases. But at this time, I say nothing more about that. So I'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weedman. Question while you're speaking about the Hamilton County Township Association. You were trying to organize a meeting originally for April 29th, I think. Has there been progress on that?
Yeah, so we had a little conflict with a couple of the legislators that we were hoping to get to speak. And so we're probably moving into the early beginning of May, middle of May latest. And I should have some more information. I'm still trying to, it's tough to navigate because as you know, we got a number of townships in Hamilton County, and they all have their meeting dates. And so I have to take those dates that aren't meeting dates by somebody and then try to coordinate that with the legislators that we're going to bring in. If they're in session in Columbus, it's tough for them. Obviously, we're going to be doing Zoom, but some of them go back and forth. And so we might be catching them during their travel schedule if they had subcommittee meetings. So it's kind of tough to navigate, but we're still working on it. And it's probably not going to be the 29th, but I'm hoping to have it to be somewhere between the beginning and middle of May. So we'll keep you updated. As soon as we've nailed down a date, we'll be getting it out there.
Okay, thank you. I know I've nagged you about this sometimes, but I know it's also very hard to bring all those people together with all the different things you have to juggle, and you're doing it as a volunteer. So thank you very much for doing that. Mr. LaBarbera, any comments? Mr. LaBarbera, you're up. I think we might have a connection problem.
Breaking up a lot.
We can hear you. Your video is
Greg
not moving.
Kesterman and Denise Driehaus, the commissioner on the American Rescue Plan Act, and there is no update on that. So there's nothing moving on the American Rescue Plan Act. They're encouraging people to get vaccinated. We're still level 3 red in Hamilton County, and we're going to be there, he said, for the next couple of weeks. And the good news is 39% of the population has been vaccinated in Hamilton County. That's if you take away the under 16 that can't be vaccinated, that picks it up to about 44% of the residents of Hamilton County have been vaccinated. So that's good news, and no shift in the numbers. Yesterday they had 90 cases, 101 cases per day has been the average for the last week. Just stay healthy, stay safe, everybody.
All right. And I've got nothing further to add for comments of my own. Thank you, everyone. We have some announcement changes and then one other thing to do here. The Larchfield Plainfield Improvements Open House style public meeting that the county engineer is having, which we are hosting, is at the Township building on Thursday, April 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. At Township Administration Building, 8540 Kenwood Road. So if you're interested in the road diet proposal for Plainfield Road, I hear some feedback from somebody's microphone there. That is scheduled. Check our calendar for other scheduled meetings and events. And now I'll move to adjourn into executive session with Law Director Deepak Desai as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 to consider pending litigation. And into that, I will invite Mr. Porter, Mr. LaBarbera, Mr. Desai, Mr. Warwick, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Kellums. Mr. Weedman will be recusing himself from that meeting, I understand. Is there a second as to that motion?
Second.
All
There
right.
is a second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Porter, will you call the roll as to that motion, please?
Mr. LaBarber,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye. And let me ask before you go further, Mr. Desai, should Mr. Weedman vote on adjourning into executive session, or should he recuse himself from that under the circumstances? You're muted.
Mr. Weaven should vote on the motion, and then if he deems it prudent to recuse himself, he can do it at that time.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you then, Mr. Porter, if you'll continue.
Mr. Weedman.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We will adjourn into executive session. Then currently it is 8:40 p.m. We'll all be moving into another Zoom room here, and then we'll return when we are done with that. So thank you. Will we get an invite? Okay, thank you.
See everybody later.
Thanks, Rob. Yep, have a good night.
Yeah.
Mr. Ebo, can we have a couple minute break?
your dinner in the oven.
You're making dinner for us? What? All right. So we are back live waiting on Mr. Weidman to pop back in there, I think, if he's going to. Mr. Warwick's back. Mr. Porter's back. All right. There we go. All right. Got my gavel. Might as well bang it. We are back from executive session. It is 8:54 p.m. And is there any further business to take care of?
Call the roll. You should call the roll.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Call the roll. Yes. Mr. Porter, would you please do that?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Not sure he heard you because of the Wi-Fi problem.
Aye, I'm present.
Mr. James, Mr. James.
I'm here. Here.
Mr. Weidman.
Present.
And for the record, Mr. Weidman never left, I suppose, technically. So, all right. Everyone is back from an executive session. I will present a motion here. I move that that Sycamore Township hire the law firm of Surdick, Dowd, and Turner to handle the responses to the subpoenas and records requests served upon the township and township officials in the Weidman versus Hildebrandt suit pending in Warren County, Ohio, and for the administrator to be authorized to execute the engagement agreement with that firm. Is there a second?
There is a second.
All right, Mr. LaBarbera has seconded. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Porter, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weidman.
No. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? I'll
There
second.
is a second.
All right. Very good. I think we can agree on that at least. Let's get out of here. So let's have a vote. Mr. Porter, call the roll, please.
Mr. LaBarbera,
Aye.
Mr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Weidman.
Aye.
We did all agree on something. Very good. This meeting's adjourning at 8:56 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.